What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. I am the House Hacking Mom, and in today's video we are going to be talking about marriage and money and marriage and how the two can work together. Everyone has heard the statistic that the number one thing that couples fight about, that married couples fight about, that people get divorces over is financial problems, financial issues, money problems. So I think it's very important for both the husband and wife to be educated on the topic. It is in your best interest, it's in your marriage's best interest, it's in your family's best interest if you take the time to learn and be educated, at least in the basics of finances. So I'm ready. I've got my cup of tea here. This is a lovely vanilla loose leaf tea from Harney & Sons. And let's jump right into these 7 things that I think are going to make a huge difference in your financial success in your marriage. The very first one on my list is you need to make sure that you have joint bank accounts. And I think this gets really sticky and people don't like that idea. Everybody wants to feel that they have a sense of independence even after they get married, that, you know, it's my money and your money and I can spend my money on what I want to spend my money on and you can spend your money on what you want to spend your money on, and then together maybe we decide how we're going to divvy up the household expenses. But really you can see how that mindset of yours and mine, it will be really difficult to achieve any financial goals as a couple, which is how you are going to have financial success, is you need to work together as a couple. And by the way, in most states, when you are married, your assets are one anyway. Your spouse has rights to all of your assets in the event of a separation or a divorce. It's not always split up 50-50, but everything is on the table to be split up 50-50. So with that in mind, you might as well keep everything together anyway. It's going to be a whole lot easier to reach your financial goals when everything is out on the table, out in the open. I sort of think of it as the two of you are sort of starting a business together or a corporation together. And it's really only going to work if you both bring 100% of all you have, you put it on the table, you say, I'm all in, I'm risking everything. We are going to go at this together, we are going to attack it together, and we are going to succeed together. Statistically, that lines up with financial success long-term in a marriage. The second piece of advice that I have been given as a young married person is to make sure that you both have full access to everything financial of the other person. So that includes, retirement accounts, it includes credit card accounts, checking accounts, so on and so forth. You have the right to have it explained to you, to understand it, to know why it is happening that way. It is very important to have all those things out there in the open. Doesn't mean that they can do anything about it or change it. It just means that they need to have access, they need to be able to see it, and they have a right to understand what is going on. This next piece of advice is something that I have heard repeatedly from both husbands and wives in marriages, and it is to make sure that even if one person in the marriage earns a lot more than the other person, each person has an equal vote at the table when it comes to finances, regardless of how much they make compared to the other person. And this is especially important if one of you doesn't work at all. For example, I am a stay-at-home mom now. I am a nurse and I still have my license, but I have stopped working currently while I am raising our baby. But that does not mean that my vote counts any less than it used to when I was working full-time. And my husband respects that, and he knows that I have equal say when it comes to how we are going to invest our money, how we are going to spend our money, and that helps so much with the harmony in our home and to feel like we are both working together to have financial success. The next thing that couples need to make sure that they are doing, even though it can be annoying, is to make sure that they are doing a written budget every single month. And I've talked about this before. I have a whole budgeting video that you are welcome to go back and watch if you have any questions of how that is done. It's very simple. I just do it on our budgeting app, the $EveryDollar budgeting app that's put out by Dave Ramsey. It's free. It's very simple. And there's Mint and a whole lot of other apps out there that are also good. But you want to make sure that you are doing a zero-based budget, which means that every dollar that is brought in every single month has an assignment and a place to go. And the crazy thing is that when you do a budget that way, you will see actually the difference between your income and your monthly expenses. You will see exactly what is the difference between those two. Or you realize, of our monthly income, our car is a quarter of our monthly income, or, our house is half of our monthly income. And you'll start to see some of those percentiles that perhaps really do not make any financial sense for your family. So it's very important to make sure you are doing a zero-based budget where you mark out ahead of time where every single dollar is going to go. And also, this is where you can have a little bit of wiggle room between spouses. So maybe you really like pottery and your spouse doesn't understand why you like pottery and they think it's dumb. But if you can fit it into your budget somehow and you both agree to it, then the tension just goes away. It's so much better to figure out where money is going to go ahead of time than fighting about where it goes after it's already been spent. And you want to make sure there is a balance. It's not a good thing, say, if one spouse has, a hunting hobby, which is very expensive and costs, maybe $1,000 every single hunting trip that they do or more. And the wife is not allowed to buy, $10 throw pillows for the living room. You need to make sure that there is some sort of balance between both parties in that how they are allowed to spend money in the family and that it is agreed to ahead of time. It doesn't have to be perfectly equal, but there needs to be some sort of balance in how money is spent. The next thing that you want to do, and this is very, very important, I think especially, you need to sit down a couple times a year and go over your financial goals, both your short-term and your long-term goals. So your short-term goal might be, we want to pay off X amount of debt every single month, or we are going to save up for this vacation by the end of the summer. Whereas a long-term goal might be, we want to have X $1,000 in our retirement account in the next 5 years. Or we want to have 3 investment properties by the time that we are 30. Or we want to be millionaires by the time we are 40. I encourage people to reach high in their long-term financial goals, because if you say it out loud and you write it down and you list out steps that you can take to reach those goals, suddenly it goes from completely insane and impossible to possible. There are all sorts of everyday millionaires out there, and the vast majority of them did not inherit anything from their parents. So it is 100% possible for any couple to have financial success, no matter how big the goals are that you are setting. The next thing is that you want to make sure that you could survive all of your main payments on only one income. Now, obviously, if you're already a one income household, that's already taken care of. But if you are a dual income household, you want to make sure that your cost of living does not exceed only one of you working, because you never know what's going to happen. One of you could lose a job. One of you could get sick. The wife could get pregnant and have to go on bed rest for months and months and months. You don't know. So you want to make sure that you can at least pay for your home, your food, your utilities, and any loan payments that you might be making. You want to make sure that you can do all that on only one income. It doesn't mean that you will be able to live the lavish life that you might usually when both of you are working, but you want to make sure that you are not going to go into bankruptcy if one of you, for whatever reason, stops working. And that was a huge thing for us. We made absolutely certain that I was going to be able to stop working at any point when I needed to after I had my baby. So that meant that our mortgage payment could not exceed what we could afford. It meant that the area we were living in would not exceed what we could afford utilities wise. We had to make sure that we were not going to have any vehicle payments. We are in the black every single month, and we are working towards financial progress, even though we have switched from a 2-income family to a 1-income family. All right, the last piece of advice that I would give a married couple financially is to make sure that both of you are becoming educated when it comes to finances. And I'm really sorry if one of you can't stand learning about money, or if it's just really not your forte, or you hate crunching numbers. I'm sorry, that's just really not a good excuse. Money is one of the most important things when it comes to running a household. It is the number one thing that couples fight about. It's the number one thing that divorces are made over. It is just a very important topic. Personal finance is not a subject that's taught in school. It's not even taught in college. And so adults are released into the working field with no real foundation of how to handle their money unless they're parents were really good about teaching them and explaining to them how that stuff works. Listen to some podcasts. There are so many wonderful podcasts out there about learning about finances. My husband and I really like learning about real estate. One of our financial goals this year is to get another investment property. So I listen to the podcast Bigger Pockets, which is basically a real estate investment podcast, and it's funny and it's easy to listen to, and I have learned so much. And at the end of the day, it is the husband and wife's responsibility to make sure that they are going to succeed financially and that their family is going to be taken care of and that their family is going to be provided for. So brushing it off to your spouse and saying, well, honey, that's just really not that important to me. You take care of it. I trust you. And putting that huge burden all on one person really isn't fair. And it's just a recipe for building up resentment or for there being huge surprises down the road. And one person says, well, I was doing my best, but we were falling behind and I didn't want to tell you. So I kept trying to make it work. And now we are $20,000 in credit card debt. You do not want to get in those sorts of financial situations. So tell me, what are your financial tips for a married couple? What tips have you heard from other people who have been married for a long time? Or what are some issues that you have with money in your marriage? And what confrontations do you have over money with your spouse? Let me know in the comments below, and maybe we can help each other out. I can point you to some resources that have been very helpful for me. And as always, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. I make 2 videos like this every week about frugal living, minimalist parenting, and healthy eating. Thank y'all so much for watching. Bye. Got my